What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another movie review on my channel. Today I will be reviewing Scream, and hopefully everything is working fine. I'm actually recording this on my new webcam that I just bought. I finally broke down and got a webcam for my PC. If y'all didn't know, my PC, the monitor that I've got did not have a webcam installed into it. I don't know why, especially with the money I paid for, but it is what it is. Ended up buying a webcam today, and this is what I'm using to record this review. And of course, you know, I'm speaking into my mic, and that's why I have these headphones on, so I can hear myself and hopefully the sound quality is good, so I don't have to constantly lean into the mic. But anyway, today I will be doing a review for the movie Scream. This is the 5th installment into the Scream series. The last Scream that came out in 2011. I actually remember when that one came out. It came out like 2 weeks before I graduated from college, and me and a couple people, ended up to go see it and ended up quite enjoying it. I think one of the things that I was worried about coming into this movie was the time spacing between the previous one and this one. Of course, that one came out in 2011 and this one's coming out in 2022. And I'm a huge fan of the Scream series. Like, this is a huge part of my childhood. The first one came out in 96. I was 7 years old. The second one came out the following year. I was 8. The third one came out in 2000s. I was 10, getting ready to turn 11 that year. And then, of course, there was a gap in between. Then by the time the next one came out, I was already an adult. So I think one of the biggest things I was worried about going into the movie was the time gap. Like, you have a whole decade and a year in between the films. How is this really going to play out? And I remember watching an interview. This is back in 2020, back when we were still pretty much on a lockdown of trying to come out of it, where they had Jamie Lee Curtis and Neve Campbell, of course, play Sydney, do an interview with each other. And that's when Neve Campbell had announced that they were doing a 5th film and that she was getting ready to go film at the time she was getting ready to leave to go film the movie in like 2 weeks. So that's pretty much where that was at. But basically, what this movie is about is first off, they have all the original. Well, first off, before I even get into that, another thing I was worried about with this movie is the lack of Wes Craven. As you know, Wes Craven was the person who created this franchise, but of course, he passed away a few years ago, and the last film that he worked on with, as far as Scream goes, was Scream 4. So this movie did not have, the Wes Craven stamp on top of it. But the question is, was the movie still a good movie? Well, we'll figure it out as this review goes along. So Scream 5 basically is a whole, like I said, decade and some change later. I'm glad they're keeping it in real time and they're not trying to make it seem like, okay, we're in 2022. Well, they shot it in 2021. And that they are not trying to make it seem like, oh, this is a year after 2011. No, the time has definitely passed. Dewey's doing his own thing. Gail is doing her own thing, and Sydney is doing her own thing. Gail, she's now this top anchor person in New York. She's no longer doing like the regular journalism that she's always been known to do. Dewey is now retired. He's no longer the sheriff. He's not a cop anymore. And Sydney, she's finally, married with someone who is not crazy, and she has kids and she's living her own life as well. So it seems like everything is pretty much going well until who Ghostface pops back up again. And it's like, okay, what is Ghostface here for now? What is his motive, or what is their motive? Because sometimes it could be more than one. What is the motive this time? Because there's always a motive when it comes to Ghostface. They never just do anything just to do anything. And a lot of times it seems to go back to film or movies or something along those lines. So what is Ghostface's motive this time? Really, to be honest, I would say that the motive was fandom. I would say that if looking at it in hindsight, the motive was fandom, or trying to make their own type of film while not so much trying to piggyback off of the originals. Because basically what it is, and I like how they did it, because this is something that a lot of people have an issue with, even with movies today, is them constantly remaking things over and over again to try to make it seem like it's fresh and it's new. And in this movie, it's pretty much doing the same thing about how people like original things. Stop messing with something that is original and let things just be where they are. Don't try to keep going for money grabs, because that's exactly what the films today are actually, in hindsight, are doing. So I honestly get what angle they were going with. But of course, like I said, we have the original 3 characters, but we also have some brand new characters. The main new character is this character. Her name is Sam, and she basically lives in another part of California. She works at a bowling alley with her boyfriend, and they basically, she just basically is away from Woodsboro. She used to live in Woodsboro, but she ended up leaving Woodsboro because there was a deep, dark secret involving her, and that's actually leading into one of the plot twists of the film. And it's actually, while I like the plot twist, I don't like how soon it got revealed. So basically now she has to come back because her sister, and if you watch the trailer for the movie, in that first trailer when the girl's being called, that is indeed her sister. That is the one that's being attacked by Ghostface in the middle of the movie. So she gets a call, she has to come back and everything like that. She doesn't want to come back because, like I said, of the secret. Now, I'm not going to reveal to you what the secret is because it is a plot twist there. And I will say this, it does have a relation to somebody in one of the older films. And I'm not going to say which film it was, but definitely in one of the older films, she does have some kind of relationship with this individual. And shockingly, they actually found a way to have this person have a cameo in this movie. And I'm going to just leave it at that. But one thing that I did have an issue with is how soon and how quickly they revealed this plot twist. Usually plot twists come like a little bit, like maybe midway through the movie or sometimes towards the end. But this one came like almost immediately. Like I wasn't expecting them to reveal the plot twist that soon. And that was kind of, it kind of caught me off guard. But now Ghostface is back and they're trying to figure out who it is. I will say one of my hunches when they revealed who Ghostface was, it wasn't who I thought it was based on some things that I had read online, but it wasn't exactly who I thought it was. And I'm fine with that. It is what it is. Because honestly, looking back at it, it would not have worked. It would have been interesting. It would have threw us for a loop, but I don't think it would have worked in hindsight. But she comes back into town. She has to make sure that her sister is fine. Everything is okay. But then it keeps happening over and over again. So now they know that they have to reach out for help. And who do they have to go to? The originals. Of course, they have to go and reach out to them for help when it comes to this situation right here, because they've dealt with it before. They already know what to expect. It is what it is. Now, one other major plot twist that I did not see coming, but I think I kind of mentally prepared myself for it, was, I will say this, and this is like a minor spoiler, it's not a major spoiler. One of the major characters does not make it to the end of this movie. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say which character it is. Some of you may have an idea, but I'm not going to say who it is. And let me just say, when you grow up watching a franchise like this and you're so used to seeing these characters evolve over time and you get so used to seeing them, when you see them go out like that, it does kind of hit you at its core. Because I'll admit, when I was in the theater watching this person end up take their last breath, everybody who was in the theater with me, it was like quiet. It was real quiet. Like I even heard some people be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this happened. Like what is really going on? What is happening?" That's kind of like that moment. That's how you knew that the people ended up loving these characters. But I think a lot of times, you've done this role for so long. It has had a huge mark in the defining moment of your career. But now it's time to like move on. This character's pretty much done. You can't do nothing more with it. Just keep going. Should they make another movie, which they probably might actually do, it is what it is. The memories will just be there when it comes to this particular character. The new characters that they brought in outside of the Sam character and her sister, some of those characters did kind of annoy me. And it's not like the original characters when they had the side characters in there where you could kind of mesh with them as well. But then again, I'm a person born in the late 80s, grew up in the 90s, so I'm used to that as a person who's young seeing that. But then when you get older and my age is like, some of it was kind of corny and some of it was kind of cringy. Like, for instance, we had 2 black characters in this movie, like 2 black who were basically in the movie, they played siblings and they were twins. The the brother, he didn't so much annoy me as much as the sister did. The sister, like, you know, and I'm not going to really give away like how they're connected to another character. One thing that they did was they made sure to connect a lot of the new characters to old characters in some way, some fashion. Like these twins right here, these two black twins, I guess you can say they were probably most likely biracial, are connected to another character from the original films as well. I'm not going to say which character, because if you do indeed want to see the movie, you'll find out. And it actually, you know, for the female, for the sister, it kind of does work. But in a way, it was one scene where she had this monologue, and I'm like, oh, can we get through this monologue? I mean, we understand who you're who you related to, and you're trying to almost like you're trying to establish yourself as the female version of this character. But can we just speed it along a little bit and get like really to the point of it? But that part really just kind of like, I was looking at to my side and like this, like, okay, can we just keep it going? Can we keep it moving? But that really kind of just, kind of annoy me. And that's how it is when it comes to new characters. But then that goes back to writing and how the characters are written. And that's pretty much how it is. Sydney, they didn't bring her in until almost halfway through. I was kind of looking at my watch, like trying to figure out when is she going to come in, because you know when it comes to the Scream series, like people come to see her, but she didn't come in until like after a good 30 or 40 minutes into the movie, and that's kind of weird considering when you think of the first 4 movies, she comes in rather quickly, but this time they brought her in rather slow, and that actually had me kind of worried. Like, okay, how long was she on set? And how many scenes did she film? And I can tell that she didn't really have that many scenes. Like her time to shine really came in like the last few minutes of the movie, if you really think about it. But I can tell how they're setting this up. They're setting it up to pass the torch to another character if they're going to continue with the Scream franchise. I can tell that's the angle that they're going for when it comes to this. How I feel about that, I don't really know, because like I said, we grew up with these characters and we're used to seeing them. But if they feel like they have to pass it on, it is what it is, because you know you've been playing these characters since '96. That's a long time. You're talking like over 20 something years. That's a long time to really, when you really think about it. Gail character is still Gail, still Gail doing her thing, still the sassy journalist who's willing to get a scoop. But I can tell in this movie that she is not as how she was back in the originals, and I'm glad, because if they just kept her like that, that means that she had no growth. And I just want, like I said, I always want to see the characters evolve beyond what we've known them to be. Like Dewey was always like, he was the young one. He always seemed like he didn't really know it all, but he definitely did come through. Sydney, of course, was the badass. She was always, the survivor, the fighter. And I think that's one trait that we like to keep when it comes to her. But even when it came to this movie, they kind of scaled her back a little bit when it came to the survivalist skills that we all know her to have. But I attribute that because she's older now. She's not a teenager anymore. She's not in her 20s. She's not in her 30s. I think Neve Campbell's like in her 40s now. So I get it. And with Gail, she is more, like I said, she's more toned down. We can see a little bit more seriousness with her character this time around. She's not all in your face. She's not always trying to get a story or anything like that. That kind of made you hate her in the originals, but in a way, she did come through in the end as well. Now, there was another plot twist with this movie that happened towards the end. I'm not going to say what the plot twist was, but I'm glad that it actually happened. And actually, this plot twist actually had the audience cheering, at least the theater that I was in. It actually put a smile on my face when I saw it as well. So I'm not going to say what it was, but hopefully, if there is another Scream, that this plot twist, quote unquote, ends up in the next film. I'll just leave it like that. The scare factor of this movie, it did have some jump scares. I will say it did have some jump scares. The kills, my God, you would think that the person who was doing the killing had a robotic arm and they had that thing set to extreme, because they were going in with the kills. Like, every kill in this movie was pretty brutal, like very brutal. Now, one kill that happened that didn't seem believable to me was with a character that appeared in the fourth Scream movie. They actually made their first appearance in the fourth Scream movie, and they were coming in to come and save their son because Ghostface called them and said that they was at their house, and they basically came out of the car. And mind you, this is in broad daylight. They came out and Ghostface came in from behind the deck and just kind of like attacked them and literally killed them right there in broad daylight in the walkway of their home, where I'm like, is anybody walking around not seeing this? That this person is literally getting hacked to death? Like that part right there didn't seem so believable to me when I saw that in the movie. I was like, no one saw this, but okay. But I will say, like I said, the kills were very brutal. They did have some callbacks to the original movies, like, oh, I see what they did there. That reminds me of the original one, but I'm glad they didn't like harp on that. They just kind of threw little hints in there too. And also shout out to the movie for throwing Wes Craven's name in there without saying Craven, because it was a character in the movie named Wes. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, okay, I see what they did. That's a tribute to Wes Craven, which is fine and great, because like I said, he's the creator, he's the mastermind behind the Scream franchise. It's why it's very successful and everything like that. They even gave him a little title card at the end of the movie at the credits. And every time they kept saying for Wes or this is for Wes and everything, I just kept saying this. They're talking about Wes Craven. Gave him a character name in the movie for one of the characters, and it is what it is. Definitely a horror franchise legend, director. This is the same guy that also gave us the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. And speaking of, now that I think about it, they actually did mention Elm Street in this movie. And if you remember in the original movie, the first movie, when you saw a character wearing a Freddy Krueger sweater and he was mopping the floor, he was the janitor, and the principal called him Sorry Fred, that was a nod to A Nightmare on Elm Street, which was Wes Craven's movie. And the person who was playing the janitor, who was named Fred, was Wes Craven, just in case y'all did not pick that up. So I like that they mentioned his name in this movie casually, because like I said, it was a character, and then they mentioned the street called Elm in the movie, which was a nod to him as well for his Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. But if I had to rate this movie, I would give this movie an 8, mainly because, like I said, it actually was pretty decent. It was actually pretty good. I was worried because of the time that it took to, for this movie to be made, to the lack of Wes Craven's input, because he's no longer here. Which actually, I think if he was still here, he would actually definitely appreciate the film. Like I said, some of the cringy stuff came from the new characters. Like I said, you have to get used to them, but I'm gonna be honest, some of them didn't make it, so it is what it is. But I will say this movie did something in the horror franchise that a lot of horror franchises do not do when it comes to black characters. And when I saw that, I said, okay, I see what they're doing. Especially if you remember the second Scream movie, in the opening credits, they kind of made fun of it with killing black characters off before the opening credits happened, with Omar Epps getting killed in the bathroom and Jada getting killed inside of the movie theater. So they kind of did that in reverse kind of way. They did something like very different with that. And like I said, that was something I never thought we would see, because usually if you have more than one black character, either one's gonna die or both gonna die. And plot twist, I'm gonna just go ahead and say it. The two black characters in this movie both survived. They did. I'm shocked. That actually caught me off guard. That actually kind of made me a little happy seeing that, because we all know how they treat black characters when it comes to these horror franchises. But that's pretty much going to be my take on the movie Scream. I'm surprised they didn't call it Scream 5. They just called it Scream. I guess they said putting the 5 there. People know how to count. They know that this is the 5th one. This is not a reboot. At first I was like, they're calling it Scream. I'm like, this is not a reboot, they're calling it Scream, but it is what it is. Shout out to that Ghostface speaker. I don't know the actor's name, and fun fact, in case y'all didn't know, when they were making the original Scream movies, and I think going forward, they would have the person who did the voice on set, but he was not around. They kind of had him hidden, so the actors, their expressions would actually be genuinely scary of that voice. Like you never knew where he was at. He was kind of off somewhere on a phone, just reading his lines from the script, but the characters did not know where he was at. They didn't even know his name. So they still have, I believe that's the same actor, the same voice actor still doing the Ghostface voice. That is an iconic voice. I remember they used to try to come out with the voice changers back in the day. It wasn't the same. It just didn't hit. You just had to have that voice in order to mimic the Ghostface voice changer. You just had to have it. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end this review. Y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments. Is this the movie that you would plan on seeing, or are you going to pass on it? Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you all in the next one.